Well, Dom, here we are again. It's you, it's me, and it's all the questionable life decisions that led us to this point to make a podcast. But we got some coffee, we got some stories to share. Let's get into it on this Monday morning.
Yeah, I thought that was going somewhere nice.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's not nice or not nice, it's just real life. By the
Mhm.
way, top of the hour, let's mention I'm starting to look more and more like my person in the logo. I'm
Oh, there you
yeah,
go. Did you
you know,
shave?
no, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
No, that's staying the same for a bit. I said we should just throw a hat on me.
hmm
That way I could just stick with my life changes every other month.
Yeah, well. So, moving on. Um, we didn't get a show in last week because everything just went sideways for you. And let's get into that. So, what happened
Yeah.
last week? And then let's tee it up. We've got one question we want to ask each other this week. What did you pick?
That's a good
We'll see if we
question.
get to it anyway.
Yeah, I got it down at the bottom. Oh, mine's. I actually had a question not from our list, but just something from this week
Mhm.
of where we would want to live and why. And I have a little
Mm,
thing that I found recently that was I'll kind of toss it out there. So that's my question. It's like discussion of where, why, and what calls us to live in a place.
cool.
Um,
Okay.
but
Good. And
yeah,
then we'll also check in on our 30, I can't count, writing project thingy, which is due next week. We said we were going to talk live about it. Um, you've
yeah.
got a bit of a smug look, so
Well,
I'm hoping I can still beat you. All right.
well,
Let's.
yeah. We got
What happened last week?
so yeah. Up in Connecticut, we had a lovely ice storm, and it was a double whammy. We had an ice storm. Temperatures dropped while it poured, so just layered on ice on the trees, and we were in our living room looking out, and this giant pine tree. You could watch just giant branches fall, just fall, which is not adding up to a good, you know, climax. Which ended up we saw the tree branch fall, land on the wire, go poof, pop, and then all the
Ah,
power goes out. I'm like, well, that's gonna take a while to fix.
oh
So
boy.
it was a matter of sitting in our already, it's an older house, so it's already a kind of colder house, and you feel it getting colder. We're like, all right, what are we gonna do? Looking at the lines, I'm like, this does not look like a quick fix. So it's
Mhm.
like, it's about to get
And you're
late.
like
What do
you're
we?
like way out. Like, what are you? 5 minutes from the center of town, but it's
Yeah,
like you're in the boonies, aren't you?
and I found out that our line of after we, obviously we have power again. After finding out, we're on the end of the metered line of power. There's us and then one other person who on our roads. It's like
I
we are
see.
the last
Hello,
stop.
darkness, my old friend.
Exactly.
It's going to
That's
freeze
what I
out here
said.
at the end.
I was like, I can feel it getting colder, so we have to let's make an executive decision. Do we just try and wait it out
Mhm,
and do that, or do we, luckily we have family around of like, let's try and like, see if we could pile
mhm,
up with them.
mhm,
Other options would be obviously like rent a hotel or something for the night, or find if we can get a generator in
mhm.
time.
Yeah, yeah.
So the latter two weren't likely options. So like, let's just bunk at my in-laws, which was great. It's where we used to live, so it was nice. It
Mhm,
was nice going back. But during that, we started getting sick one by one, just picking us off like, plink, plink, plink. I got sick first, or no, there was a child that was sick first. I forget which one of them. And just kind of a annoying cold, fever, very congested, just blah. And all the while, I had to have this, 102 fever. I literally had 102 fever while I was outside hoisting a generator, trying to hook up like the fridge.
mhm,
Um, so it was kind of just a mess of we were just disconnected. Uh, you know, Luckily it was a long weekend, so I did have some buffer in that. But it was just it was fun. It's funny. In all the craziness and all the sickness and moving around, we were very like comfortable with our family again, which kind of teed up the idea of like where do we want to live, what do we want to do, what's going on.
mhm, mhm,
Um, so that's been in the back of my mind, the nugget. And but got through it. We have one kid who's just finishing up the last bit of sickness, so I had to go through. There's 5 kids, so I had to go
mhm.
through all the kids, and it was one of those sicknesses that it just took a long time to get to each one. It wasn't like all at once. Like there's sometimes like a stomach bug, it's really crappy, but we all get it at the same time.
Mhm.
This one is like I'd get it, 3 days would go by, then the next person would get it, then 3 days would go by, then, and so on and so forth through
Yeah, yeah.
7 individuals. So
Mhm.
that's why we didn't record last week. It was just,
Mhm.
it was a mixture of like I'm feeling crappy, but I have no power to.
Yeah. Well, out of all of that, apart from the conversation about where you'd like to live and what
Yeah,
that brought up, what's something good or maybe surprising jumped out
like,
at you from this past week, especially this experience? Anything?
yeah, well, it's in tandem with the book I've been reading, which is it's called Unwinding Anxiety, and it's not necessarily about anxiety. It's one part, but it's unwinding any sort of habit loops you find yourself in. So
How did you find
habit
this book?
I had
Sounds
found
good.
it a while back, and it was one of the books that I got for my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot about
Okay.
like habits too. It started with this, the tangent will go back to your main
Mm.
question. It started with this doctor who is asked, "How do you get your patients to stop smoking?"
Mm-hmm.
And he's, started with the duh thing of like, you can't just say, "Hey, just stop smoking." Like if that was the answer, no one would be smoking that doesn't want to be smoking.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "How do you get somebody to stop doing a habit that works?" And so I'm only halfway through. So he goes in 3 parts. The first part is mapping out your habit loops. So you have a trigger, you have a behavior, and then you have a result. So trigger is I'm feeling stressed. Behavior, I have a smoke. Result, and then it's just a neutral result. Result is I feel relief from that
At
stressor.
least not stressed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you find out the other loops, it's obviously, it's not healthy for you. It's, so you kind of trying to break that. The thing is, you have to realize that your mind will do things that it deems rewarding. And we get stuck in something that, another thing is people who, have a tendency, a sweet tooth that don't want to eat, cake as a child represents goodness, memory, fun, birthday. And so when you're feeling down or emotionally, depleted, well, a piece of cake brings back the thoughts and memories of goodness. And that's why people
Mm-hmm.
have sweets. So your body says that's a better reward to deal with this not good thing.
The
And so
agony and pain of present living.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, have a piece
Right.
of cake.
Cake.
So,
Right.
yeah. So it's just
I have no experience with this, by the
yeah,
way.
I'm not
I'm always baking.
I'm not trying to fill anything. I'm not trying to fill any void. Um, so it was a matter of, seeing these habit loops, and the only way to kind of break habit loops is when you get it to the point when you map it out and you realize that the reward you're positing is actually not beneficial. It's not your top beneficial thing you can give your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I'm not all the way through the book. So the first part is mapping and understanding, which is
Mm-hmm.
so understanding that what's going on. Two is you start. I just started into this part, so I'm kind of interested to see where it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But I say that all because having this reset of losing the power and losing, and having to, stay somewhere else for a bit, kind of broke a little bit of a cycle I was in, and be like, let me pause and think. What I'm just kind of going on autopilot. What do I want to be doing with my free time, with my, work zone efforts, with my family time? Like it just kind of helped reset. Nothing monumental came from it, but just like what do I want? And like kind of analyzing, I'm just doing these things, but why am I doing these things? Um, so yeah, it was very nice. I haven't gotten anywhere, you know, no epiphany yet, but just it's the
Mm-hmm.
start of like, let's just start looking at the things I'm doing versus just
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
them.
Yeah. Like changing the mindset.
Yeah.
Um, I had a little thought on that yesterday. I'm trying to now take a walk after lunch every day for about
Well, that's
maybe
nice.
a half hour or so. So I'll head up through the neighborhood. Now, if I do it 3 times, it's about 15 minutes a loop or so. And I'll listen to podcasts and stuff. Anyhow, one thing that by the end of it, I was trying to think, I need to make a short video. I need to do something that does a short video. And so I sat down, pulled up the camera, and I hit record. And I didn't exactly know where I was going to go, but I knew I was starting to get a sense that the mere fact that I was taking action and that I was like walking around, I'm starting to feel about myself a little bit different than being somebody who sits at a desk all day. And reminded me of a conversation you and I had, I don't know, a couple of episodes ago about how conditioning yourself and how you can
Yeah.
condition yourself to do nothing when you have really good ideas and you're not realizing that you're doing it. Whereas if you can condition yourself to take action really quickly, as soon as you have like an idea, um, okay, it may not always be better, but what you're doing is you're trying to be attentive or intentional with a trigger or an opportunity or a stimulus or something. And if you're always responding habitually to do nothing, that's probably why nothing is changing. And
Yeah.
um, so, anyhow, it was just, yeah, in terms of like habit, response, stimulus stuff, that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to like losing complete power and stuff, we used to lose power. I won't say routinely or a lot, but growing up as kids, we were talking about this last week as we were checking in on each other. We used to lose power as kids a lot up in Pennsylvania, and we used to, if would get too cold, the machine down in the basement, the what is it, central heating or whatever, it would ice over and then just shut off, and then all of us would have to like tape blankets up over doors and go full medieval, and we would sleep on the floor in this one the dining room and bank up the fireplace, and that was it was purely primeval, to quote Bell. Well, on a positive note, the last house that we were in, our previous rental, power used to cut out because it was an old neighborhood and trees and branches would fall all the time. And one thing I noticed was how quiet it would get in the middle of the night when everything is off, when the house doesn't have that sort of silent hum and
Yeah.
buzz of like having a nervous system, when it's as silent as a tomb. It's such a, I don't know. Sometimes I wish I could walk out every night,
Yeah.
flip that switch, shut
Mm-hmm.
everything down. I mean, I think it's a more human way to actually
Well, yeah.
sleep.
Yeah. That's yeah. We
Um,
were we were talking about that too, and it's not so much. The only thing I didn't like was that it's so cold, and we have so that's the problem. We have a fireplace, but it's not when I don't have like a stack of wood to
mm,
burn, and it's does not radiate heat well. It's in the corner. It's not original to the house, and so it's merely for aesthetics, which is
mhm,
nice, but it doesn't serve any function really. So
mhm,
like it and it's on a wall that the heat just kind of escapes. So it's
yeah,
very pretty to have on, but that's what I was saying. Like if the power goes out, we have no way of heating, and
mhm,
especially with we have a still have an infant. Um, I thought about that though. Like, why don't we just sit here and like we'll just all come because we'll go to the warmest room in the house. But I was like, I have no way of like really warming it though.
mhm,
Which made me think I would love to be in a place where you don't like have you don't need power to at least stay there. Like it'd be different if it was in the summertime, like you kind of just rock and roll with it, and you're not worried about heat. But
mhm,
that's the biggest thing. Just having a house. I would love to have a house that you could just maintain
mhm.
without power.
So let's get into that. Let's talk about the dream.
Yeah.
This past week got you thinking about the future. Um, you found a cool reel. There's some interesting things you were thinking about. You came
Yeah.
back down. You reorganized your office.
I know.
Cue
Yeah.
the hyper jealous me. Books in the background and
Yeah.
stuff.
But
So,
everything I own behind my back. Yeah. I don't know. There's a couple of things I saw. Yeah, so I saw that reel. It's that this woman in Wales who had a cottage that's just gorgeous. Really redone, done well, simplistic. Even though it's in the Wales, I don't know if it's like got a Scandinavian vibe. It's just very like chill and open and airy. Loved seeing that.
mhm,
In a little bit of farmland. But then this morning actually, I saw this person who converted an old schoolhouse in Indiana, and I don't know why, something it tickled me just the right way, if I could say that.
okay.
It was so cool. It's been like 3 years, and I got to see, luckily, like the final tour or the full tour, sorry. And they just reconverted the whole building. It's not a massive schoolhouse. Think of like 1900s schoolhouse, like old in
I'm
rural.
thinking the Waltons, small white building,
Yeah,
sort
but
of
bigger than that. Bigger
10
than a one-room
desks.
schoolhouse. It's picture just
Oh,
like a large square brick building with 2 floors.
yeah.
I don't know the square footage, but they convert and it looks absolutely gorgeous inside, but there's all like these
Mm,
callbacks to old like, academia and school, and like so there's a lot of stuff from the old school, from the town. And so each room has kind of like this callback to 1800s, 1900s academia, which I
mhm,
just love. I love, and they have old maps on the walls. It looks so cool, and it just got me thinking like a project like that sounds so exciting. though hard and time consuming. It just like they just poured all of their own personality into a place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I crave is like a place where even though like, obviously you could decorate as much as you want, no
Mm-hmm.
matter if rental or not. I just want a place where I could pour ourselves and make it our own, whatever it is. If it's, a 900 square foot little cabin or a 4,000 square foot, whatever. I don't, the size is not necessarily the point. It's that a
Mm-hmm.
space that you could just make your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that's what we've been thinking about. Where would that be? What would that be? Um, and just, yeah, the problem is I'm spread across multiple climates of like, I appreciate the north, that's where I'm from. I appreciate the south. It's very warm. I appreciate the west. It looks beautiful. So it's not necessarily, I don't know, it's necessarily the location. It's just what we make of the space,
Yeah.
wherever that may be. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you ever like thought like what, and I don't know why certain things call us
Mm-hmm.
like and draw us to it.
Yeah.
I'm not
Because there's
drawn to the
specific
city.
areas of,
Yeah.
yeah, specific places that just do not. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like you tallied it up and decided, okay, for these reasons, I have decided I shall
No.
never go to this
No.
place. It's like, no, I just intuitively, that's just, yeah, not my vibe.
Yeah.
And if you're stuck there, it can feel, I don't know,
Uh-huh.
feel awful.
That's a big part. I think freedom.
Yeah.
Your freedom to be in a spot is huge.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
what do you think?
Well, so to which question, like, why do we like that, or where would I want to go?
Where would you? We'll start with what calls to you. I know because
Yeah.
I'm specifically interested in yours because your childhood and adolescent has so many
Mhm.
different areas. Like me,
Mhm.
lived in everything in one spot, so I
Yeah.
only have one spot to pull from. You have
Yeah.
half the globe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's like on average, like every 2 years, we're moving somewhere different. Um, I don't know. I tell myself stuff like, I just want the white picket fence. I want the stability. I want the roots.
Yeah.
I think on a, um, how do I say it? Like on a soul level or a spiritual level, I really, really want to grow roots and to get into a place. But then
Yeah.
the question is like, where do you want those
Where?
roots to go down? Because if you have to uproot at some later point,
Uh-huh.
or you I don't know. So I don't know exactly where. I've looked at a couple of places. The one place that has like enchanted me is places like Harper's Ferry. So that's a little more to the north.
Okay.
It has
Yes.
clear seasons, a lot of old country, old world. But I don't know anything else about the culture
Yeah.
than that. I think it's a lot more small town living. It's just more beautiful because there's a greater preservation of an older time and an older culture. It's less of the kind of at least it's the read that I have after like 10 minutes looking over my wife's shoulder, Googling in a fit of depression and peak because we can't stand where we live. And so we're looking at, what is it, Redfin or some of these other overpriced
Yeah.
directories and stuff. And just so routinely we'll see these small towns up there that will be not just small because nobody cares about them. They're almost intentionally small because
Purposely
they're
small.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they seem like they're well maintained and they're loved. There was a couple of episodes from Gordon Ramsay before the pandemic where he was traveling around rebooting small failing restaurants and businesses and hotels or something like this. I can't remember what it was called. Anyhow, we loved it. And there was one episode that was set in a Harper's Ferry area, and it
Oh,
was
cool.
just gorgeous to
Yeah.
see. For me, it didn't have that sense of old town or small town America. That's like, what are the right word? Like you watch a lot of old Disney movies like Pollyanna and stuff like
Yep.
that, and I grew up loving those. Or Old Yeller, right? There, it's anchored in a very specific Christian ethic outlook and so on, which maybe can be more minimalist, more focused on preaching. But I look at a lot of these older towns, I'm intuiting or sensing there's a bit more of the sort of Catholic element, which is, gosh, I saw this phrase. Actually, you put me onto this guy, Father Greeley. He talks about how reality shimmers with sacramentality. I think that's a line that he says. And sometimes you see these old towns and you see that. There's a beauty in them because the people recognize being here is good and being in this place has not just a story, has a presence about it. And we want to be a part of that and bring that to life.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that, and of course, I lean a little more European. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I wish I had a clearer sort of
No.
answer. I
Yeah.
think I do tend further north.
Yep.
Although I love Southern culture, I think that Northern culture also can be
It
very
can, yeah.
distinct and very beautiful.
Yep.
Very respectful and or something like this. I think it is just a matter of the people that you meet. You know,
Yeah.
to whitewash, or not whitewash, to paint with a broad brush. I'm not sure. I mean, sure, it's a caricature, it's funny, it's a stereotype, but I think that there are genuinely good people, like no matter where you go.
Yeah. I like, so there's a couple things that came to my mind, and that's where I've kind of landed. It's not necessarily the specific location. I just want a spot where I can grow roots. And the problem I've had in the past, though, like, so we lived in a place, our first, apartment was, we lived there for almost 10 years.
Wow.
And each time, or not each time, I started with the mentality of like, well, we're not going to be here long. Like, so don't like even like kind of don't get to know the neighbors too much. Cause I'm like, that's a more of a personal trait. Like, I don't want to get to know people cause we're going to move and I don't want to have to, get really close to them and then break it off.
Yeah.
That's the thought. However, we were there for almost 10 years. And so I spent 10 years being like, it's only temporary. It's only temporary. It's only temporary. And didn't fully, kind of connect until the last year that we were there. Our kids started playing sports. Our son was playing baseball. Our daughter was playing softball. Got really close with some of the parents and like got like started, and they were neighbors and like, started making, connections. And then we moved. And it was just like, which is fine. And a part of me was like, see, that's why I didn't want to do that. But the other part was like, no, I should have just done that from the beginning. And there's this line. Here's a nice fun callback in Avatar. Is the
Airbender or James Cameron?
Animated.
Okay.
From Nickelodeon. Uncle Iroh says because they're on the run and they're hiding out in this little town, and the prince who's been cast aside says, I'm not making a life here. And then the uncle says, life happens wherever you are. It's like, don't like, and it's just like, it's such a small line in an animated series, but it's so powerful because like, no matter where you are, like you can make your life there. Stop like waiting for the perfect thing to happen before you start living. And I take that lesson to put it when I was in my previous place. So I'm putting that here. I just want to start living, not like wait until when we get to our next place, like that'll be when we start living. And another thing that kind of merged with that is something that our friend Chris said, is that he's like, because I was asking, he's from up north, he lives in, Texas. I'm like, where do you like to live? Where he goes, I have like, there's goods and bad, there's good, pros and cons of every area. He goes, but you could literally stick me anywhere and I'll be fine as long as I have community. And I was like, that's right. That's why people can live in the middle of, nowhere, Alaska and live, a lovely life, is because they have a good community. So I think
And
that's
Balto.
yeah. I think that's what I'm looking for. Just like a good community, or to start, diving into the community. But I don't know where, I don't know.
Because the problem with that, and see, what I've struggled with that is that, because yes, that's absolutely true. Now here's the problem: is you're like, well, where am I going to go find the nicest community? I'm not even convinced that if I, for example, as a Catholic, go, well, let me go find a nice parish somewhere. It's like, there's no guarantee that's going to be a nice community. And to move to an area specifically for a parish may not always be a good thing. But I don't know. Sometimes I wonder. It's a matter of, do I need to level up my boundaries? Do I need to learn to accept people as they are? That's a different question. Something that struck me, and in usual ADHD way, it's like I'm pulling two different things and I'm smash them together and see where they go. But I remember watching a confirmation 10, 13 years ago or something. And I think I was asked to be somebody's sponsor the previous year. So it was a little bit fresh in my mind. And then confirmation came around again, and I was sitting up in the choir loft looking down at the confirmandi, the whatever, the people, kids getting confirmed.
Yeah.
And I remember being struck how we have godparents going on with this thing, right? Where kid goes up to receive the sacrament, and then there's these two godparents who will show up. And what's the idea? Well, they're supposed to stay a part of this kid's life, mentor them, and because they are not the parents, they're able to bring in other insights and experiences, especially when you stop paying attention to your parents. And I remember thinking, what a genius way to internetwork a community to not like spider webs, but like to create and cement, bridges and links between people within a community so that a community is more stable
Yeah.
and so that a person is more intentionally connected to other people outside of their initial family. Now, for me, it's kind of, I don't know, maybe this is like normal for everybody else. For me, it was kind of a light bulb moment because our whole family, we'd grown up so isolated, routinely isolated because we traveled a lot. And also we had some pretty stinking thinking that was normalized. And so we were very elitist about stuff. And so to see something like that, and then I'm thinking, you and I read Iron John separately like 2 years ago now, a year ago now.
Just about,
And there's the line where the author says something like, young man cannot be initiated into manhood by his father. As counterintuitive as that sounds, it must be by the other old men of the tribe, because there is just something about the relationship with a father and a son
Yeah.
where, I don't know, you see the father from sort of the inside out. You're too close to the source. Familiarity breeds contempt, all of that sort of thing. Whereas all of these other men, usually I think this is in pre-industrial cultures, it's certainly in pre-modern cultures, where the old men would come in and forcefully or physically, and of course it's all ritualized, but kid has no idea what's going on, separate the kid from the parents, from the family, and then put him through specific trials, and then inculcate him or teach him or initiate him into, now you are a man, this is what a man does, here's how a man acts, stuff like that. And it has to come from other people. Where am I going with all this? I have forgotten for about 0.5 seconds. Oh, Halloween. So you're talking about going to a community anywhere. So we never did Halloween growing up until it was the last couple of years I started walking my little girl around because she's old enough to start walking around and asking for treats and stuff. And I remember the first year I did this, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is a beautiful, incredible thing. Because again, I'm like the alien that has landed and is slowly learning the ways of the people, right? And so it's like, okay, we got ourselves a little ritual. You walk up to the door, the person does a thing, you get a good thing, and your parent behind you says, good job, let's go do it again.
Yeah.
Well, what's the ritual? It's specifically in the case of like Halloween, it's like, can I face my fears and go and knock on a stranger's door and ask for something beneficial and meet them and be respectful and then get a reward for that? And
I picture you as a newcomer, the alien, like SpongeBob and Patrick selling chocolate. They open the door. I love you. Sorry, I'm new to this.
that's me standing at the street. Some of these people who show up are weird, and some are reticent and reckless. And some are wonderful, and you can tell they like wish that the kids would just sort of stay an extra 30 seconds and like maybe talk. And so, just looking at the neighborhoods that I'm in now and the ones that we were in last time, how it's sad, right? How silent these neighborhoods now are. They're sleeper cities, right? Where it's not a neighborhood where people live together. These are places where people simply sleep together and then leave to go to work. There's no kids.
It is, and it's even in our old neighborhood. We used to go trick or treat or with our kids, and you could tell the difference between. And again, it's not just age, it's personality too. But there's the houses that the bowl's on the front step, doors shut, it says take one. And then you had this one couple. At first, it was a bit off-putting, but they're like this older couple. They go, come in, like they wanted people to come in. Like there's bowls out there. It's like, how you doing? Like how was the night? Like they just want to be like talked to. And at first, it's like, why are they asking us to go in their house?
Yep.
But it is such a difference. It's very community oriented. Like it's very fun. I love it.
Agreed. So here's, so there's this one little example that really brought all of this home to me, these 3 different ideas. And it was that we were going trick-or-treating in this neighborhood here. And it's not only another old neighborhood, it's very much another sleeper neighborhood. I don't know if anybody knows each other. I know that I'm totally new, so I don't know anybody yet. And I remember walking down the end of the street. There's no lights. all the houses are dark. Most people
Mhm.
have just put candy on chairs, like you
Yep.
just described. And at the end of the street, there's this one lady. She might have been, I don't know, early 50s, mid 40s or something. She's sitting there. She almost looks like Gollum in the dark. She's sitting there, sort of crouched on the front porch, holding a tin bowl full of candy. Lights off. She's just sitting there in the dark. She's just waiting for anybody. There's nobody. There are no kids in this neighborhood. Okay.
It's just,
She's just sitting there in the dark, waiting. And it felt like such a weird symbolic moment. Like
yeah,
even here, all the way out at the end of things, there's a heart that wants to give goodness to others,
that's good.
just waiting for somebody to emerge out of the
Yeah.
darkness. Like the last homely house is what it felt like. And so we went to her, we said hi, and she seemed like a nice person, maybe a young mom, I don't know. And you do the little thing, and you get the candy, and you turn and walk away. And I felt like really bad. Like, should we just stop for like a minute and just say hi and be a good neighbor? And I don't know how to be a good neighbor and stuff.
I love you.
Where am I going with all of this?
Yeah.
These specific things that we do, especially around festivals like Halloween, maybe Christmas. I don't know if there's like Easter and everybody goes and does eggs at the park or something. It's like this sense of being able to network a community together.
Yeah.
To intention. So I could tell like my child, you need to face your fears. You have to wipe the puke up from the floor that the dog left there. You've got to go pick up the doggy doo. You've got to, so you have to, or the punishments are going to be worse, or I'm going to
Yeah.
bribe you with additional like candy, whatever.
Yeah.
But what happens if you take the rest of the community, the whole sort of it takes a village? What if you involve the rest of the community in that education where it's now outside of the intimacy of the family? Now you sort of flex
Yeah.
those lessons with the rest of the community in an intentionally loving environment. Like I basically promise you say the right words to me and I will give you good things. You
Yep.
teach us as children that it's okay to walk out into the world with respect and tenacity,
Yeah.
to do good things and to ask for good things, and ask for business, ask for opportunities, and make
Yeah.
it worth. Don't TP their trees and stuff like that. I remember thinking this. I saw this line. This is hilarious. Like, we used to be so wealthy in the past. We had extra toilet paper and eggs to trash people's houses. Like, we were so wealthy in the
We were
past.
kings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to wrap up, this idea that these sort of things that we do around these big sort of moments of the year are absolutely vital. The less our neighborhoods are actual neighborhoods, the more we need these like rituals.
You know what it is?
Just to be aware that there's
Yeah.
other people and we can invite them into interaction with each other.
I think we're made for this, community. And there's two examples that came to mind when you were saying that. Did you ever read Little House on the Prairie? Little House on the Prairie.
Ingalls Wilder. Yeah, I read the books. Mhm.
So we read I have a little more fresher memory because we read it 2 years ago with our kids. Kind of went through
yeah?
them, and I might be butchering, but the gist was that they're in the not their old house, the new house, and it's still like it's a new town. I forget the name of the town, and everybody's segmented. Everybody's trying to just work on their own homesteads. Everybody's trying to live, and everybody's isolated. And they were saying like day after day, it was the winter, and so like there's nothing to do. Especially then, they have no toys, they have nothing, and Laura's getting a little antsy, and everybody's kind of like, why is what are we even doing here? And so the town, the jump cut, I don't remember how it transitioned, but jump cut, the town starts doing like a spelling bee, like in the one room town, meeting hall house, and everybody gets together, and everybody's lives like blossom because like, this is what it's all about. Like Laura was like, I can't wait for the next one. It's next month. And everybody started getting excited. The town came alive.
Mhm.
It was just so, even in that little moment, like, community is what blossomed, and the people didn't really care for each other, and some of them.
Mhm.
And then another thing is we went on a family vacation to like upstate New York. One time we were, so all the different families met, and we met in this random house in the middle of nowhere. And we went to church that one Sunday, and it was like a one-room schoolhouse church, the smallest church I've ever been in. I kid you not, there's probably 20 people max, and then we added another 4, 5. I think we only had 2 or 3 kids at the time. And when we came in, everybody turned and was like, "Welcome!" Literally said "welcome," and the priest came up, "So glad to have you." And the smallest amount of people, but the
Mhm.
biggest life and
Mhm.
hearts. And the pastor, before the mass, he goes, before we start mass, I want to say we obviously have some guests. We want to welcome them. Please have some coffee and cake afterward. It was just like so much life
Yeah.
with these
Yeah.
20 people here,
Mhm.
and you get so much more life there than you've been in like cathedrals with hundreds of people. And not
Mhm.
to say that one person the group is better than another. It's just that even in that small
Mhm.
town where nobody was. I mean, we were, I don't know what the town name was, but we were in the middle of nowhere. And it was just such heart.
Mhm.
And it's those, you could just see that those people, no matter who they were, they just chose to connect with the other people in that community because there's not many options too.
Mhm.
It's not
Mhm.
like you don't have the luxury of saying, well, I don't care to
Yeah.
like associate with that person. They are
Mhm.
your neighbor and that's it.
Mhm.
I don't know. So every once in a while that memory comes back to my mind of, even though I do like a bit of a bigger parish.
Mhm.
I do like a bit of a bigger town. I loved that heart that was there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
So okay, so two thoughts then that jump to mind. One is I'll start with building up the right responses to different kinds of people, and then two, I want to kick around the possible future of what um, living communities are going to be like in the future,
Mm.
um, like people converting malls into like home centers and stuff like that, which intrigues me. Or
Well,
anyhow, so but first,
yeah.
the temptation to want to move somewhere perfect and to have a tribe, right? Like there's this community out in Texas. I think can't remember what it's called anymore, but they tried to go like, okay, this is going to be Catholic Disneyland, perfect Catholics. We're all going to live here. We got like, I don't know, several thousand acres or a couple hundred acres.
Yeah.
I don't even know. And we all believe this. And so we're all going to be there. And I took one look at that and I thought, that's going to be hell on steroids. That's going to be a cult because
Oh yeah.
already what's going to happen is day one, everyone's going to be checking in on each other. And oh gosh, what did you say? You'll end up in purity spirals. Oh, well, you're not perfect enough, or you're not, you don't exactly agree with everything. And so
Yeah.
over time, it's going to whittle down, 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 down like a horror movie until there's like, well, there's nobody left. And, or you just park your brain at the door and, oh gosh, it's going to be like the
It's
movie
like
Midsummer.
HOA on yeah, like it's like an HOA.
HOA in hell. Um, as opposed to, so that's one temptation.
Yeah.
And I can understand it, why
Mhm.
you would want, especially today, we're
Mhm.
so frazzled, we're so exhausted, we're undernourished in so many ways. We were never, a lot of us, I think, are not raised with any sense of how to handle ourselves and other people in ways that maintain boundaries,
Yeah.
that are self-affirming or self-protecting, without needing to like, bleed out over everybody else and require everybody else to validate me. Like to be able to stand on your own feet and to respect where other people are and not allow them to derail your life just because they've had a bad day or a second
Yeah.
opinion. So a lot of us don't have that. So the idea, it's a bit like kindergarten, is like, I wish I could find a kindergarten where everybody's nice. And that's kind of the mental level that we're
Yeah.
sort of stuck at. So I say that because that's exactly what I dreamed of my whole life, tried to build my whole life.
Yep.
And now I'm realizing, okay, this is not appropriate. What needs to change? I need to change. Like you said about Chris, I want to be the kind of person who can be airdropped into any situation and I know how to make it work.
Yep.
I can figure out how to make it
Exactly.
work because I
Yep.
know better how to handle people.
Yeah. I feel
And
like
that
there's like a
allows me to radically accept them, like wherever they're at and who they
Mhm.
are, and learn how to navigate that.
There's a benefit, I feel like, to having a neighbor who's like you need you need that nagging
Mr.
neighbor. Yeah.
Wilson.
Well, you need like a neighbor who complains about your dog. You need the neighbor who like because it and I say that it's annoying, but it challenges you to like deal with something that's not like
Not
idyllic
be in an
and
ivory tower.
exactly. And that's I say that because I hearken to something that somebody was we got a complaint about our dog barking, and it's okay. That's what it's all about. Like we live in our dog's fine now. We got her little collar that beeps when she barks, and she doesn't bark
Uh,
anymore. And it's
okay.
like, but it's you need that to show like it's not just about you. And it was just like, at the moment it's not great, obviously, because I was like, oh gosh, no, I feel bad. I'm kind of annoyed, but I feel bad at the same time.
Mhm.
Um, but it's I think we all need neighbors to have that, and not just neighbors, a community that pushes us, challenges us, and you know, I don't think like we've said, like these communities, it hasn't shown to be perfectly idyllic, and uh, um, the cons come in when you have this, everyone's the same, we all do the same thing,
Mhm.
because then something's gonna bubble up and over eventually.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh.
I don't know. Yeah, I kind of
Yeah,
want the nagging
there's a
neighbor.
horror movie called Midsommar, which
Oh yeah,
I watched once. I don't know that I'll watch again, but I got so much out of just one watching. And should probably do a YouTube video on that one
is that
actually,
the
because that
one
one's
that's
intense.
is that the one
Florence
that's
Pugh.
yeah, and is that based off of like the Shakespeare?
Oh no, it's not. No, it's
That's not the
completely its
same
own
one.
thing. No, it's
Okay,
about
I do know.
her and
Okay.
a Danish cult,
Oh,
sort of
okay.
horror
Yes.
cult up
Yeah.
in Denmark or something like this.
Fun.
Anyhow, yeah, it's fun. But it's also a really good reflection on
Yeah.
cult-like thinking.
Yeah.
Um, so something that I'm kind of interested, I'm not kind of, I'm very interested in is the future and where it's all going.
Yeah.
But more importantly, the new things that can also be happening.
Mm.
Such as I'm fascinated by, well, different things and maybe
Yeah.
better sort of happening as we look at the future, because we've got these really interesting sort of trends
Yeah.
happening where, how do you say this? I don't even know what the percentages are. There's lots, hundreds of thousands, if not a lot more, people are trying to retire every day. There are not enough kids. We are facing a bit of a demographic winter. There are a trillion, I don't know, truckload of homes that were honestly built badly long time ago or more recently, that were never meant to, or do not endure past like
Yeah.
3 or 5 years,
No.
and they're
10
rubbish.
max. Yeah.
We're moving around, around the country. We've got fluctuating,
Yep.
populations or something like this. And so I'm interested looking at all of that and just thinking, well, how do we start? What happens with the future like this, especially where not everybody can buy homes, and then you have this new administration, and this is shaking up the economy and changing up and doing new things, and they want to greenlight new cities,
Yeah.
which is a whole fascinating new idea, and they want to have like the World Fair apparently
Yeah.
next year, which like what does that even do?
I
I'm
don't
very
know.
interested.
Yeah.
So there's stuff for a while I've seen these people have talked about, or architects have outlined stuff like, what if we create like a retirement village that's like these massive strip malls? No, that's not the right
Yep.
word. It's like these covered malls or something. I love walking around in these things. Like you have these glass roofs,
Well,
and there's
yeah.
so much
Arcades.
sunlight. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it feels like you're outside, but you're inside.
Yeah. Well,
And there's moving water and plants in there, and go
I
ahead.
was gonna say that because I was saying it's long. We're too far in. We should have popped the top of theory and conspiracy theory a long time ago. But
Oh,
let's get into it. No, there's so the old arcades, not like video game arcades, but like mall arcades.
hmm,
Um, I just saw one in Providence, Rhode Island, which we've been to, and
yeah.
the upstairs they convert to all apartments, and they're trying to do
Oh,
this.
cool.
Yeah, so and it's a very cool. So when you go in, it has the glass
Especially as
ceiling.
we shop online, a
Exactly.
lot of business, not only a lot of business can't compete, a lot of businesses also can't get away with basically forcing us or giving us only
Yes.
garbage options.
Yeah.
And so they deserve to go out of business.
No, and this pushes us back. I like the two things this is doing. We have so much infrastructure already built, so old homes and old buildings, like repurposing versus building new. So that's one I
Hmm.
like. I'm in
Yeah.
favor of. Two is uh getting people back to face to face things. So that's what they were. I watched this. It was like CBS whatever spot on it,
I want to watch this.
and
That sounds cool.
yeah, I'll send you the link. And it showed like, so they were like, yeah, we get to live up here, and and it's beautiful, all the glass ceilings, so you have this like kind of like old France kind of style, because they have like the lanterns, they have like the
Hmm.
walkways and the balconies, and then downstairs they have their coffee shops and barber shops, and she's like, it's
That
creating
is
that sense of
so
community.
cool.
Yeah,
That's
so
amazing. Yeah.
it looks so cool. So like that kind of mentality would be so good. So when you say the shopping mall, like living,
Hmm.
um, that is coming around, and even down in the southern part of our state, there's this town. I forget what the name of it's called, but they built out so apartments and townhouses, and
Mm-hmm.
then also restaurants, businesses, and office space, playground. So the tagline is live, work, and play all in this area. So
Nice.
it's like our mindset. I think the mindset's going to like, hey, everybody loves community and doesn't have it. We're gonna build a whole little
Yeah.
mini
Mm-hmm.
village.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how that is happening, and it
Yep.
is intriguing because, like, yeah, you could live there, work there, play there,
Mm-hmm.
all in one. You have built-in community, you have people that you're living near.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I don't know. Yeah, I'm up for.
I remember reading it, or there was a video talking about why cyberpunk is such a vital literary concept. I'm going
Oh,
somewhere with this.
yeah,
Because there he goes again. Okay.
yeah.
Um,
That's why I love
it's
McDonald's. Hear me out.
it's because the vision that a cyberpunk future dramatizes is a culture where the individual means nothing, and where you are chronically, I don't know, it's like a hyper capitalist vision, right, of the future, where the only thing that matters is like buying and selling. The individual means nothing, and all of your actual human needs are kept sort of glutted by hyper color things and drugs and everything else, right?
Yeah,
It's a super. It's fascinating because it's an. I think as we watch it, we recognize it's an incredibly inhumane environment for humans, for people. But it's fascinating because it's like watching fireworks. You know, it's like glitzy and there's holograms and
yeah.
it's like garbage with holograms as a life. There's I started watching Edge Runners. Oh, I can't remember. It's on Netflix. It's a cyberpunk series. Anyhow, first scene, the main character, his mother dies in a horrible accident,
Oh,
and then
wow.
he goes to collect her remains. She's cremated, and puts in his credit card to pay for it, and then a can pops out like a can of Coke, and it just rolls into a slot, and he goes and he picks her up and he walks out. I thought, this is awful. Humans have now
There's your
become,
mom.
yeah,
Yeah,
literally, it's like everything happens like robots, ching, ching,
yeah.
and it shows up in the slot.
Hmm.
Well, okay. The video that was making this point is this is an insanely valuable kind of story for the same reason that we would have stories during the Cold War about nuclear fallout and the aftermath of World War III and these horrible, mind numbingly depressing stories. We need these because these are futures that we must avoid. And for some of them, like Cyberpunk, it goes the other route of you would never want to be manipulated into participating or having to endure that kind of a future.
Yeah,
As cool as it initially feels, like you really live through this story. Like let's spend 2 hours pretending we live in this environment, and you realize by the end, maybe I don't want this.
yeah,
Especially if I'm down on the bottom of the social hierarchy. Well, reason we look, I think, at a lot of culture that we have today in the First World West and so on, especially if you're an inner city kind of person, or especially if you live in the suburbs, and you would think this is where culture is going. Now
yeah.
you get outside of this glass invisible dome, and then you get out actually into a bit more of the countryside and so on. And you begin to realize, okay, we're a hell of a long way away from a garbage future like that.
Yeah.
But what I find interesting is, on the one hand, you have some people trying to build that kind of future, but you also have people who recognize it is an inhumane future. What happens when we use the genius of all this tech to actually build stuff that reinforces or regrounds us in being human? And I think you then go all the way to the other side, and you have people using plastic bottles and recycled tires to build,
Yeah.
like they're trying to be organic and holistic living places. And there are some of these communities and like interesting test cases. They look awful to live in. I would never want to live there. As
Yeah.
opposed to an intentional culture. This
Yeah.
great example is going to be how King Charles, Poundbury, I can't remember the name of this place. He built like a city in England, or a village in England, where he tried to pull all the best tech that we have today, and marry it to the best that we know about the most ideal living conditions for humans. And then he went and he built this gorgeous place. The wait list to now live in this place is like, I don't know, 2 to 4 years out. There's like tens of
Wow.
thousands of people, because it's not only beautiful, it's intentionally human. It's kind of like a 15-minute, city
Oh,
thing.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
but he's also very intentionally, how do you say this? For whatever his drawbacks are, I think he's very intentionally spiritually aware to the genius, to the charism of a specific place. Use the
Yeah.
materials from a place,
Yep.
embed yourself in the stories of a place. Where you are also matters too. So all of this to say, I am fascinated to see, everyone goes stuff like, oh, in the future, the banks will own everything. Well, who could
Yeah.
have predicted people coming up and creating stuff like blockchain and crypto
I
to
know.
decentralize and sort of smash that or provide an alternative, and every single time that I see people going like, oh my gosh, the future's going to be like this. And I'm like, have you seen human creativity?
Yeah.
Have you seen like you build a highway,
Yeah.
it's like, can you imagine all the people when the Romans come through building Roman roads? Why do they do that? So their armies could get around places faster.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was the only intent, but that was one
Major.
apparently
Yeah.
major intent.
Yep.
Well,
Even
I think with
American highways.
well, it's so funny now to think like, if the Romans built highways to get their legions out to places with more efficiency, everybody else goes, hey, we could use this to do this.
Yeah.
And then when the Roman legions all die out, we're still doing our thing and we're trucking supplies and
Yeah.
helping each other and visiting Mrs.
Uh-huh.
McGrundy faster to bring her muffins and whatever. These big evil corporate overlords, whatever, they do what they do and they build the systems and the superstructures that they do. But then we find other uses for them that they didn't anticipate or expect. And then we end up, I don't know, this is what so intrigues me about the future. Like maybe we built the internet to more quickly network and talk about things. And then all of a sudden, we're now able to completely reinvent how business is done. And now all of a sudden, we're like slammed with an infinity of boring, tedious tasks that are stopping us from actually living as humans, because the kind of culture that we now have to like navigate is full of so many moving gears and cogs and things, and like it takes so much energy to try to deal with how to start your own business and how to deal with other people and try to grow your influence or reach other people. And so AI is created because it helps solve all the tedious stuff, the mind-numbing, brain-deading stuff.
It opens up other areas for
and it creates an entirely new. And so the very moment where everybody thinks, oh my gosh, here we go, we're all heading into a new fascist communist future. And then all of a sudden we get like AI and decentralized internet to allow every individual the chance to start new things. I don't know where this future goes, but I'm seeing groundwork being laid for seriously interesting things.
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
That allow us, like you say, to get back to what it means to be more
Yeah.
human.
Well, it's funny how I feel like there's constantly this cap put on humanity of like what our utter limit is always this cap, like even 1,000 years ago, 200 years ago, there's always like this cap, like once civilization reaches this, there's no going back, whatever. And yet thousands and thousands of years of history have shown like there's no caps. It's just things change. And just like you said, like like the even the highway system, like this ultimate pinnacle movement of artillery and infantry. It's like no, like
military oppression. It's like
it gets repurposed, and even
muffins.
like exactly, like even like that's like that was Eisenhower did the highway system in America. The same thing. It was made for infantry and military, and now look at it. It's for mass transport of anybody. I just think it's funny, like whenever somebody starts to like theorize like the end of civilization due to one thing or another, it's always like you kind of like roll your eyes, like I mean maybe the end of a certain facet of it, but like it's just like there's the village, there's the picture of like in New York City, like the tree growing through the concrete. I say it because like no matter what, like the cap is never, it's just a cap for the moment, but things will always break through and change and transform. So I don't know, I've never been like a I don't even know what the term would be, not fatalist.
Doom and gloomist.
Yeah, just like because like just
don't
like whatever anything you say, and even like in a Christian standpoint or Catholic standpoint, people say they always love to predict the end of the world. Like all these signs point, and yet we have in our own sacred scripture that no one knows the day or time, but yet we still do posit that we know. It's just so I always like I think the biggest kind of looping back like answer seems to be like curiosity, community, and there's probably a third C word that would fit nicely in that. But I like being curious and just being with the people around. But yeah, I don't know. There's so many theories of, but it's interesting to see like nowadays we all seem to be like again like this cycle of pulling back. So we had like the smartphone and social media and internet boom, and everybody's like so into it, and now you have this bit of a recycling phase of people are like, oh, it's actually better to have a dumb phone and it's better to be, disconnected. So like we go through these things, we have to learn and kind of seek it all out and understand all the effects of something before we're like, okay, now that we've been there, now we can dial back and now we know how to put it in a different spot.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the future holds, but I don't. Yeah, it seems like when you take like old writing of like the 50s sci-fi, they just had like this linear track of like, oh, if cars have coming gas, well that just means the cars are gonna fly and it's even though they might, but it's like they kind of that one way track of like that trajectory, but it shows that like things develop and change, and actually we're not
Yeah.
like
It's like, why do you want a faster car? It's like, well, I can close more deals and transport
yeah
stuff around
exactly
faster, have more Walmarts and,
yeah
people can drive to longer jobs with more efficiency or more distant jobs with
yeah
greater efficiency. And it's like, it kind of goes back to that thought founder of Ford who said, if I asked everybody what they wanted, they would have said, make me a faster horse.
yeah
It takes like a category
yeah
shift to give a
uh-huh
completely new solution. And so for someone, we're gonna have flying cars. Instead, what did we get? Smartphones,
yep
which eliminated almost the need to be able to
to go
drive.
anywhere, yeah to go to
Instead,
what you need to,
you
yeah
collapse the whole world to be almost
uh-huh
like at your fingertips.
yep
And then everyone is like, well, it's becoming harder and harder for anybody to start a job, harder and harder for anybody to be able to do anything because there are so many things that need to be done. Not even just talking about bureaucracy, but
yeah
like social platforms and the ability to reach everybody. And then you get something like AI. It's like the introduction of a car into a medieval landscape. It's like,
yeah
first, this is really cool it's like being a greenhouse. Like I
yep
can build great squash inside this car if I fill it with,
yeah well
mulch and stuff. And so we're treating AI still a bit like that.
yes
We're using it for crap. But to begin to realize somebody just, for all of its ups and downs, negatives and positives, we've just introduced a car into the medieval era.
yeah
And we now have to level up like really quickly to adapt. How does this serve us? Could you drive a car and kill a ton of people? Yes. Well,
yeah
what laws and regulations? Okay, there's a lot still to be figured out.
yeah
But it does allow, I don't know. It's something that just routinely fascinates me. What were you
yeah
saying?
well no I was saying it kind of even like talking about architecture and stuff, it's now funny to see like how we've gone so long of the mentality of like we'll just build higher and taller and like skyscrapers were big, and so you see the Burj Khalifa, like everything's like, oh, we'll just go higher, we'll just keep going higher. And then you have this introduction of, I don't know if you've heard of like the line, it's it's in like the Middle East and
It's
it's
in
just
Arabia, right? Yes, I'm
yeah
familiar with it. Yeah.
yeah by Neom, I don't
Neom.
know, I
Yes, I think
think
I'm
so.
also following them
Yeah okay
on Instagram.
it's like kind of like, again, I don't know where it goes or what it means, but it's like this, it's counterintuitive, like instead of building just straight up, let's go to the desert and just build this line of
Straight out,
infrastructure.
yeah, miles.
It's
And it's
yeah
like their plan, I think, is like it's sort of like a 15-minute radius of your home. You have access to
hmm
everything that you need. I tell you, I'm watching that. And
yeah
I'm just thinking, how have they not created a multi-million-dollar TV series
yeah
to dramatize
oh
what
yeah
life could be like? Create the
I mean
TV show while you're building the thing to kind of like pre-sell
sure
seats. Like, I would watch that. Honestly, I'm watching that and I'm thinking, this feels like Snowpiercer. I don't know if you've seen that.
no
Chris Evans was in this movie and then they turned it into a series. But Snowpiercer is like this metaphor for human culture where there's like a train and the whole world has fallen into a global winter and the only people who manage to survive live on this train.
yeah
And the richer you are, the further closer to the front you live, and the poorer
oh
you are, the more you are
cool
at the back. And so then there's like a murder mystery and of course a revolution, and these characters have to fight their way all the way to the top of the train because we got to destroy this train. This reminds me of something, I don't remember who it was who said this, but it was talking about human culture. And it's like, even if you were to completely satisfy every single human need, whatever that means, every human bodily need or something, and create this an Eden environment, within one lifetime, people would want to blow something up just to see something different
yeah
happen. Because it's
yep
not about, can I get into the perfect environment? The actual thing that we need is, can I be the kind of thing that can adapt and grow and respond to whatever an environment throws at me? And can I feel the sense of pride and accomplishment that comes from
yeah
being an adaptable thing that can survive no matter what happens? Now,
mm.
okay, this is probably maybe more a masculine genius thing. But I
yeah
think there's a lot of women who'd
yeah
also, or not just women, feminine impulse that would also resonate with that too. Anyhow, so wrapping up, we actually put ourselves through a 30-day challenge, and I wanted to totally beat you. And so I want to find out, where are you at in finishing your book within 30 days? At the end of 30 days, the idea was to be at a point where we could order a print-on-demand
Yes.
copy and wave it in each other's face. So,
yeah. So
where are you at with your book?
So I made a big leaps early on, and now I have it at a bit of a slowdown point. So what it is that the book is 30 chapters. I'd gone through I trained up a chat editor to say, give it all this, kind of everything about Lord of the Rings and fantasy and and writing and
Okay.
kind of made it, and I just said, go through and tell me where the plot holes are, which was really good. Just have that non-emotional, non-family member editor just be like, hey, here's where your book sucks. And which is great because it helped. I was like, okay, so then I went back and rewrote those scenes and it wasn't, luckily it wasn't major things. It was just like, hey, go back to the beginning and make sure you talk about this because it doesn't make sense until you do, which helps because I've done 5 different writing sessions for this book, and I say sessions I would write for 6 months, and then I would take a break, and then I would kind of rethink the ending. So it was nice to have it all go through. So now I went through and added chapters, so now it's 30 chapters, and went through and got all the plot holes fixed, some character development, all the major things. So now I'm going through the final read through, which is just with Grammarly, but just make sure there's no double thes or missing s or whatever. So I'm on chapter 10 of 30 chapters, and the push is the only thing is I'm going on vacation in 2 days, but I could still get some. It's basically just reading through and making sure there's no double thes. That's really it. But that's where I'm at. I'm on chapter 10 chapters, final done, 20 chapters to go of just this final read through.
That's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Good. So sounds like you might make the goal. I think I'm also going to make it at the same time too. So, nobody loses. Hooray! Nobody loses. Participation
We're all
trophies.
Winners.
Yeah. So for me, what I did was I took 2 years ago I wrote this book. It was about 50,000 words on outlining my process for branding and marketing, everything that I could think of that I'd wished I'd had 10 years ago, and I wrote it all down, and then I just sort of sat on it for 2 years. And so I'm now rebuilding a freelance website and decided, well, it'd be really smart to be able to have this book on the website as a credibility indicator, show that I'm, serious about what I'm doing. I put a lot of thought into it. And so I took the whole book and I, like you did too, put it up in chat and go, okay, we're going to go chapter by chapter. I want you to be brutally honest. Where is this good?
Yeah.
And where does this chapter suck? Oh my gosh, it was brutal. It was great. So it was first outline. It was here's where it's good. And it's like, dude, you just philosophize forever. It's there's nothing actionable in here. Like you buried the lead. Wow. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So what would I need? What would I need to do to fix it? It's like, okay, start with a compelling thing, go into a story, and then unpack it and end with something actionable. It's like, wow, that format is actually really good. Yeah. So the last 2 weeks, and especially this past week, I've been punching through every single chapter, rewriting every single one. It's now actually, I think I killed 30% of the content and then rewrote a lot of it. So it's now almost 60,000 words.
Nice.
And the focus that I wanted to accomplish was I want this book to be relentlessly helpful, and I want it to be valuable for beginners. Not just people who have loads of experience, but for somebody who has no idea what to do and they want to start something meaningful, which is where I routinely am. So as of yesterday, I finished going through the book, and then I had it, re-uploaded the book to it again. I said, okay, I want you to help me create a summary of all the chapters in this book to get an overview of where this thing is. All right, now let's workshop. I need to write a blurb for this thing, for the back cover of the book. Yeah. So I've got that. Same. Got a new title. Now I'm finally at a point where it's like, taking it all, I'm putting it into Readsy, breaking out the chapters so that I can get a print-ready, layout or an EPUB layout. Yep. And I just need to redesign the cover, and I should be able to have this completely finished and then on the website this week. So wow, it's just amazing now to be on the other side of this. But honestly, that methodology that it like rewired my brain. Stop talking nicely through an idea. That's what you want to do. Now think about what your reader wants, which is help me reframe my mindset, help me understand where you're going and then tell me how to do it. And then like,
Yeah.
what's a micro win where I can just like start so I can start seeing some improvement, some benefit. So it's been really, really rewarding. I don't know if the book will ever sell anything. It's not really for that, but it's, as far as having a method and a framework just for freelancing, it's just fantastic. Anyhow, so I think I'm going to meet the goal. Well, I'm going to meet the goal too. Hopefully, hopefully you enjoy your break and, don't get too much time in, I want the headline on the YouTube video. You suck, exactly. I made it. Well,
that's what it's be called. Yeah, you suck, I made it.
Okay. Friends, if this was fun or helpful, go ahead and say hi in the comments. Let us know your objections, your arguments for anything that we said. It's always fun. We can shout them out next time. But I think that's it for the Dom and Gabe show for today. So, yeah, our coffee is cold, our productivity is shot, and our responsibilities are calling. So we will see you next time.
See ya.